It's me, Marcus Hall again, and this is another episode of M Style Guy. And today I have Mr. Randy Boyd with me. Thank you for being here, Mr. Boyd.
Good morning, Marcus. It's great to be here. Great to be with you. I'm here all the time shopping. And we finally get a chance to take a little bit of time to talk.
And thank you for wearing my blazer and doing this. And I'm going to get right into it. I've always been curious, your first business was what?
Well, that's an interesting question. My first business was bagging buttons for the Saudi Arabian army.
What?
So how does that happen? So I'm 15 years old. My dad has a manufacturing plant, and he has one machine that counts plastic insulators and puts them in and seals them in bags automatically. A friend of his had a button company, and he had the contract to make buttons for the Saudi Arabian army. And the Army didn't want you to put the buttons on the uniform. They just want you to send them in a bag to the soldiers, and they'd sew their own buttons on. Well, the guy that had the button company didn't have a way to bag them. Dad's machine didn't work, so my dad said, well, my son could just count them. And so we had an operation at its height, like 15 kids in high school, all making like $15 an hour. This is like in 1976, making $15 an hour, bagging buttons for the Saudi Arabian army. And my whole garage was this big workshop, and I'd drive the buttons back and forth to the factory to take the delivered bag buttons. That was the first business. So I was kind of a big deal in high school. If you wanted a job at $15 an hour, yes, I was the guy to see.
There you go.
But the first business, adult business, was a business called Storm Alert. My dad had a company making electric fencing for cattle and horses. I was 23 years old. I'd been working for him for 4 years.
Okay.
So I started college at age 16 and graduated at age 19. I was, not because I was smart, just because I was cheap. I was paying my own way through, and it's just cheaper to graduate early. But anyway, at age 23, some guy came to my dad's company with this idea called a Storm Alert. But it was a barometer alarm device that would pick up on tornadoes and set off an alarm. We could make it for like $5, sell it for $16, retail for $24.95. I thought, this is a good idea. So I took a week off and sold 400 of them in the first week. So I had $6 in cost, $16 sell price. I made $4,000 that week. My dad was only paying me $12,000 a year. It turned out that was my best week ever. Within 6 months, we were bankrupt. But I learned a lot from that first business.
Wow, okay, right.
My dad made cattle or electric fencing for cattle and horses.
Okay.
Some guy came to him with this idea. I think mainly because he had injection molding machines.
Okay.
You know, we're actually at that time, my dad's company was filing Chapter 11. They had no wherewithal to take on a new product. I was thinking that I was something of a burden. I could leave my dad's company, go start my own thing. It'd be better for him, maybe an opportunity for me. And so that's how I started the first business.
So, and then how did you end up doing pet safety?
So 3 companies. So first company lasted 6 months. 1 week in desperation of not having any product to sell for. We had some part didn't come in, and I couldn't manufacture anything. I couldn't sell anything. And manufacturing, by the way, was assembling these in my grandmother's basement. There's some people say, well, you started in you're like one of those garage startup companies.
Like
That's
Amazon? Or,
yeah. Well, yeah, but here's my thought is that anybody that starts their business in a garage, they're already rich, because if you start in a garage, that implies you have a house. I didn't have a house. You had to be rich to have a house, so I started my grandma's basement. But anyway, 1 week we didn't have any parts to make our Storm Alerts, so I rented a van, filled it full of my dad's products. So I happen to know there's a bunch of stores down in Georgia that were always calling up looking for product that they couldn't find a distributor for. So I went down for a week, sold everything out of my van, made like $900 for the week, paid my expenses, and turned back in the van. Unlike my Storm Alert business, every time I'd sell a Storm Alert to a store, that was the last time I would ever sell them anything. I could sell little stores all day long. They could never sell the products I would sell them. And I thought, at some point, when customers never sell any of your product, you're going to run out of customers, which I did.
Yep.
The cool thing about this distributing business, selling the electric fencing to the stores in Georgia, after 4 weeks, they started calling me back wanting more. I thought, wow, this is a good idea. This is a good business where customers actually want more of what you sell. So I liquidated the Storm Alert business and started doing the distributing business full time. After about 8 years of that, calling on little feed and farm stores all over Georgia, Alabama, and Florida, customers started asking me for this product called the Invisible Fence. 1989, 1990, I bet everything I owned, which wasn't very much, on creating a new product that we called, at that time, the Radio Fence. And that was my third company, which led to all the pet products. And that's the Invisible Fence.
Tell me what the difference between invisible fence and radio fence.
So to most consumers, not much, but Radio Fence was my product. But basically, it worked the same way. So Invisible Fence had a patent, but it was going to expire in August of 1990. So I decided in 1989 I would build my own product to compete with them when their patent expired. It unfortunately took me over a year and a half to get my product developed. So by the time I had my product ready to sell in June of 1991, there were 12 other people that had already gotten the business. So I wasn't the second mover. I was like the 12th mover into the business. But technically, they work the same way.
Okay.
The thing that was different that I did that nobody else did, Invisible Fence and everybody else that decided to follow them copied their marketing model, which was creating franchise dealerships. I knew nothing about setting up franchise dealerships. I did know something about putting things in retail packaging with a video and an 800 number and sell it to stores. Right. So I came up with a retail version, a do-it-yourself version. So I would sell mine for $250, retail for $499. The average Invisible Fence was $900 installed, uninstalled, $1,600 installed. So I was about a third of the price. I remember seeing the local dealer in Knoxville who had bought one of their Invisible Fences from as I was trying to come up with mine, and told him about my idea that I'm going to do a do-it-yourself version. And I remember him just bursting out laughing, saying, "This will never work. Nobody will ever be able to do it themselves." So that was kind of a little bit of a disappointment, but it turned out I was right and he was wrong.
Right on.
Our goal, the first month of sales in June of 1991, was to sell 100 units a month. We were selling for $250, so it was like $25,000 in revenue. My distributing company at the time was only doing like $1 million in revenue a year. We were in 42 states with 8 salesmen, but still only $1 million in sales. I thought, if I could do an extra $25,000 in revenue from this one product, that'll be good. In the first month, we sold 3,000 units rather than the 100. In the first 6 months, we ended up selling $1.5 million in product. The next year, $5 million. The next year, 9, 16, 25, and so on. Now, by the way, I'm sleeping 3 hours a night. Most of the product comes back. We have no cash flow. I'm getting yelled at for customers for not shipping and yelled out for suppliers for not paying. So it wasn't as fun as it sounded. I just made it sound. Yeah. But by the year 1996, 5 years in, we turned the corner, kind of had the flywheel going. By 2020, when I sold the company, we had 1,400 employees doing over $600 million in sales with 4,000 products, offices in 6 countries, selling in about 50 different countries. And an interesting part of the story, a part of what we did to grow was doing acquisitions. And over the last 20 years of the company, I bought probably 40 different companies. Interestingly, in 2007, 16 years into the business, I was out selling the original company, Invisible Fence, about 10 to 1. So I was able to call up the Invisible Fence company and buy their company. So Invisible Fence is now one of our brands.
PetSafe.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the PetSafe brand is our retail version, and the Invisible Fence is the do-it-yourself version. Okay. And there is a market for that. Some people, even though it's relatively easy to do yourself, to install and train, I'm sure it's probably easy to install a ceiling fan. I'm just not going to do it. There's two very distinct markets, and both are being very successful. Invisible Fence is still doing well, and the do-it-yourself version is doing well. But interesting, one last thing. When I try to tell people who we are, like PetSafe, what do you do? Well, we make the Invisible Fence, and everybody gets it. It's a great brand name, but we sell more cat products than we do Invisible Fence. We have an automatic litter box that automatically scoops out the litter, and we're actually selling probably 2 to 1 more revenue for the cat products than we do for the Invisible Fence.
Wow. So you don't just sell the Invisible Fence now. There's
like 4,000 different products.
Products now. Wow.
We make collars and leads, travel products. We make bark collars, training products, pet doors, whole range of things.
That's a cool story. So I had no idea how you started, but then of course you had some trials and tribulations like most people in business do, which is cool to hear. But then eventually it all worked out, and wow. So now that I've got that update, so after you sold your company, you decided to what did?
So I think for me, I had an easier transition than most. As I mentioned, I bought 40 different companies, and oftentimes I was buying the founder of the company, and they were going full steam, and we'd buy them, and they would leave. And I knew I would stay in touch with many of them. And it was a hard transition because they went from coming to work every day, 60 hours a week, totally invested in this business, and then they just had to stop. So in 2013, Governor Haslam asked me to come work for him in state government and higher education. He actually offered me a job, and I said, government's too bureaucratic, it's too slow, there's no way I would ever want a job in higher education, or in government, but I'll volunteer to help out. Originally I said I'd volunteer to lead a task force for 90 days. At the end of the 90 days, that we still got a lot to do. I'll stay around for a year. And so I decided I didn't want to take the job that he offered, but we just made up a title. And I remember one Sunday morning in my house texting him saying, hey, how about special advisor for higher education? He says, yeah, that's fine. So that was my title. It's amazing the kind of jobs you can get when you're willing to work for free. But that was the key thing. But I had started something called Tennessee Achieves, which was sending 5,000 students to college free of charge at the time. Right. So I had some background in providing access and opportunity to students. And that one year we were able to create something called the Drive to 55, an overarching vision for our state to go from 32% post-secondary attainment to 55% by the year 2025. And we were able to create a program called Tennessee Promise, which took what I before had, which was called Tennessee Achieves, which is a private organization sending 5,000 kids a year to school, to now a state-backed program that can send everybody across the state free of charge to technical or community college, and create an endowment that made it possible to guarantee that forever. At the end of the year, I left, but I became convinced that if you really wanted to make a difference in the world, public service was the place to do it. Yes, it's slow, it's bureaucratic, but if you get something done, it can be transformative. Right. And so I came back in 2015 as Commissioner of Economic and Community. That year, I was still the CEO of my company in 2013. I'd work at Knoxville in my office Monday mornings, drive to Nashville, stay there till Friday afternoon, drive back. And when I left, something that I remember telling all my employees was, we think we built something bigger and better than any one of us individually are. We've got this great organization that has life and has momentum beyond any one person, but how do you really know unless you step away? And so this was kind of a test. What happens if I step away? How will we do? And the good news, bad news was the company did better without me than they did with me. So they thrived. So 2014, I was chair of the United Way. It's a 20-hour-a-week job, but I volunteered to do that. That was a great experience, getting to know everybody else so many other people that I didn't know about in our community that were doing great things. Came back, then Governor Haslam asked me to come back and be his Commissioner of Economic and Community Development. So I did that for 2 years. You're traveling around the world talking with CEOs of General Motors and Toyota and Volkswagen, telling them how great your state is. And if you're successful, they'll create factories and businesses in your state, providing thousands of jobs to your friends and neighbors. It's a cool thing to do. We managed to recruit 52,000 people to the state and $9 billion in investment, 52,000 jobs and $9 billion in investment over the 2 years. So that was successful. But at the end of it, we had a few initiatives with the governor that I wanted to see continue. We want to continue the Drive to 55. We had this initiative to help our rural communities. In our state, we've got some places like Nashville, Knoxville that are thriving. 30 miles outside of town, you can go to Scott County or Hancock County, or places that just aren't successful. So we had this initiative to help our rural communities. Those were things I was passionate about. I was worried that the governor wouldn't have enough time in his last 2 years to really do all the things we wanted to do. So I decided I'd trade my last 2 years with him to run for governor so I could add another 8 years toward this mission. I lost spectacularly. I learned a lot, though, through the process. We could talk about that.
Okay. How do you feel about that?
I don't have any regrets. If I didn't run, I would have always regretted not having the courage to try. Right. And so I made so many friends all across the state, and I got to know the state at a very intimate level in every single county. And so after the election, a buddy of mine who supported me in the campaign, President Joe DiPietro, president of the University of Tennessee system, called me up and asked me over for lunch. And usually back in those days, I was always busy. My assistant says, "You got nothing. Nobody wants to see you anymore. You can see him the next day." So I go in his office and we talk for have a nice lunch. And then at the end of it, he says, I'm going to retire. I'm leaving in about 3 months, and would you be willing to be the interim just for 6 months, just until we can find somebody qualified? He didn't say it exactly that way, but I said, well, only if I can come in and be disruptive, kind of like what I did back in 2013 with with Governor Haslam. It turned out if you really wanted to make a difference in the lives of the people of Tennessee, there's no better place. And back to running for governor, as the land-grant public institution for the state of Tennessee, our mission is to serve the people of Tennessee. I always wonder, like if you're a president or when you hire these presidents from another university, from another state, they pop in for 5 years, like how do they do their job if they don't know the people of Tennessee? So running for governor, I think, really helped me do this job better and also understand the politics of the state and know the people that are in the state political system. So that helps a lot. So from special advisor to commissioner to running for governor, which was very intense, to then president, by the time I was ready to sell the company, 2 years into my presidency at UT, I'd been pretty distant from the company. So when we sold it, it wasn't as emotionally hard for me as it was for others. I'd already had this other busy life.
You've been doing so much.
You know, my sons, neither of them they have their own interests in their own lives, and I never wanted to be that dad that tries to force my kids to be in my business. If they wanted to, I'd have loved it, but it was never their passion. It made sense at some point to sell. It seemed like a good time.
Right on. To wrap that up, I'm glad that you didn't become the governor of Tennessee because you've done such an amazing job. And I don't believe we'd be where we are right now had you not become the president of the University of Tennessee. And like, what does that look like now?
I appreciate that you're happy that I'm at UT. I'm happy that I'm at UT. Okay. And my wife, Jenny, is happy that I'm at UT. There's so many advantages. I get to travel the state and support a lot of the things that I didn't think that I would be ever able to address outside of being governor. You actually can at the University of Tennessee. We're able to help rural communities. We're able to help K through 12 education. We've got a whole task force working on mitigating substance abuse and drugs. And we're improving education across the state of Tennessee. So we're involved in so many things, supporting agriculture. So I love it. I get to live in my hometown. Yep. It's still great to be still in Knoxville. And as far as longevity, the board said, as long as you're continuing to work for free, we'll let you hang around until 2030. So people say,
there you go.
They asked me to stay till 2030. I said I would, but the truth is, people say, well, you've got a contract now to 2030. There's no contract. I want to stay and get these big things done.
So next question, how did you begin to own a baseball team?
So I've always loved baseball. As a kid, I loved baseball, but I was never any good at it. But when I started working, I was traveling all over the country. I'd find myself going to Major League ballparks. Next thing you know, I was on a quest to make all the ballparks. I've now been to 45 Major League ballparks. Through that, I came in love with the idea of owning my own baseball team, a Major League Baseball team. But I've done the math, and when I was broke, I was probably only about $200 million away from owning a Major League team. Now I'm done a little bit better, but now I'm billions of dollars away from owning a Major League Baseball team. The cost of a team has been growing faster than I've been able to make money. So I had to set my sights a little lower and thinking it'd be great to own a minor league team. Remember having lunch back when I was working with United Way. Jim Haslam, who owned the Smokies at the time, takes me to lunch just as a favor to say thank you for doing this in United Way. And at the end of lunch, he said, hey, by the way, you'd ever want to sell that Smokies team? I'd love to buy it from you. He said, oh, no way, never. Too good a deal. We'll never sell. I thought, well, okay, that's the end of that. I guess if I'm ever going to be in baseball, I'll have to buy a minor league team someplace else or a minority stake in another major league team. Then fortunately for me, in 2013, I'm driving. I remember the moment. I'm on I-40 heading into downtown, and Jimmy Haslam calls me up. It's like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And if you know Jimmy, he's really quick and to the point. Hey Randy, Jimmy here. We decided since we have the Cleveland Browns, we don't really need the Smokies. You want to buy them? Sure. What's the price? He gave me a price. So, okay, let me think about it. I'll call you back in the morning. Send him an email at 5 the next morning, offering a counter price. He said, that's fine, and we were done. Now you had to go through all the process, and when you buy a baseball team, they got to check you for, your whether you have a betting habit or all. They spend 6 months betting you, but by June or July of 2013, we had the team, and I've loved owning the team. You don't get into minor league baseball to make a fortune. You probably won't even lose, but you're not going to make a fortune. But it's just fun to do. The thing I love about baseball, maybe we've talked about this before, but in baseball stadiums and baseball games, is that it brings people together. Unlike other sports, if you're at a football game or a basketball game, I mean, action is happening so fast, you're riveted to the court or to the field. But they do studies that show at football, soccer, basketball games, 90% or more of the time, the fans' heads are just forward looking at the game. At baseball games, 50% of the time they're looking side to side, talking to their friends. And so it's just this place that builds community. And one of the things I'm so excited about our new ballpark in downtown Knoxville, it'll bring people together. People from East Knoxville and North Knoxville and downtown and West Knoxville. We're all this big melting pot coming together, enjoying time together. And that's what I hope that our stadium will do for our community.
So at what point did you decide to take the stadium from Sevierville and bringing it back to Knoxville? And why did they move it?
A lot of different historians with different points of view, but the people that I've talked to that were there, they couldn't find a home that for the Smokies at the time that everybody would agree to. So they found like 2 or 3 different sites, and the people in the neighborhood would object. I think they were going to go out in West Knoxville, and the people in West Knoxville objected. So every place they looked, there was all this opposition. And so Mayor Victor Ashe said, finally, well, look, if I can't find a home for it, we need to build a new convention center, so we'll just build a convention center, and we won't do the stadium. So the owner said, okay, we're moving. And then I got him, Gary Wade, Supreme Court Justice Gary Wade, got together with Teddy Phillips and the Haslams, and they all put together a consortium to buy the Smokies and to keep them in East Tennessee. And if it wasn't for Gary and that team of investors, the Smokies would have moved to South Carolina and we would have never got them back.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so by them keeping them in Sevier County made it possible for me to move them. When you own a team, you can move from one county to the next because it's kind of in your territory. Moving from one state to the next is a whole other thing. Yeah. So we were fortunate to keep them in the community. When I bought them in 2013, we had 12 years on our contract with Sevier County. They have a sports authority there as well. But so we bought them. You know, being a Knoxville boy, always thought, wouldn't it be great to have them back in our hometown? And I also love baseball stadiums that are downtown, Camden Yards, yep. PNC Park, everywhere where you build a stadium downtown. It has a different feel, and it's also great for economic development. So I had the idea early on. There was an old study that had been done about different sites in downtown. We looked at 3 or 4 different locations. Thought, well, you know, in case we decide to move, let's buy some land. So at least that's an opportunity. And got in touch with the folks at Southern Rail Salvage. They had 2 sites where their main location is. I thought that would be a great spot. They didn't want to sell that. But they had what was an old meat packing plant on this side.
Lay's.
Yeah, well, it used to be Lay's. They were just using it for storage. They were willing to sell it to me. Funny story. So I buy it. You know, my company, I go buy companies for $50 million, $100 million. We might get a little, like 2 sentences on the bottom of the business page. Nobody cared. When I bought Invisible Fence, the biggest acquisition we ever did, $160 million acquisition, maybe 1 paragraph on the bottom of the business page. Nobody cared. So I buy 6 acres. I'm thinking, it's no big deal. It's like, I think at the time I paid $6 million. So we buy the 6 acres. Jenny and I go on a vacation in Africa. We're on a safari. And about, I guess, the second day on the trip, I guess one of the reporters saw, they list land transactions, and I was lit up. The people are calling, texting nonstop, like, so, and everybody's saying, okay, Randy Boyd bought 6-acre tract, actually it was 9 acres, enough land to build a baseball stadium. He owns a baseball team, putting 2 to 2 together. This was the theory. And so I was like on the front page like 3 or 4 days in a row.
But that was your intention though, right?
No, well, it was an idea. It wasn't, I mean, it wasn't, there was a lot of, I mean, there's a ton of things that you'd have to do to get that done, which we found out. You know, you get city council approval and county commission and all these different approvals, and you need to get city and county and financial support as well. So just buying the land was just it gave you the possibility of doing it, but there was a whole lot of work left after that. But anyway, there was a lot of excitement about the concept of doing it.
Of just doing it, which, yes, I recall. And I own the property, and I'm about 100 yards from, if you don't know where and so I was like, yes, that's going to be it. So it totally changed, and it's still evolving the landscape of just downtown Knoxville. And so thank you again.
Well, you're welcome.
It's for making downtown Knoxville a cooler, better place, and I'm excited.
We should put on a commercial message. Anytime you're coming to a game, you get here a little early, you can always stop.
Come and stop and buy some.
Yeah, 5 minutes away.
We're going to come up with some kind of swag.
Yeah, we need to have some Smokies gear.
Smokies gear, yes.
This is a good podcast. We got a new idea.
Yes. So anyway, excited about that. I have my season tickets, and we're less than a month away from opening day. So excited, man! I am. I'm super excited, and I've seen the stadium, and it's beautiful, and it's actually makes me proud to be in downtown Knoxville and Knoxville, and we've got something to offer, concerts, and then the soccer team will be there, and now you're going to have apartment buildings down here, and just makes Knoxville a cooler place and a destination. Last topic,
okay.
And I got to know this because I aspire, and now you've left me in the smoke on this deal, and you may not know this, but I kind of have a little envy about this. You're running.
Okay.
When the hell did you start running? And I'm amazed that it's like I'm going to get a cup of coffee and Randy's running another marathon. When did you start running, and how did that become a passion for you, Randy?
So I ran cross country in high school.
Okay.
But
didn't know that.
Yeah. That wasn't really that great, but I ran. And then in my early 20s, early 30s, or 20s and 30s, I'd run occasionally, like maybe 3 or 4 times a week, 2 or 3 miles, 4 miles, maybe something like that, just to try to stay in shape. You know, when you're building your business and you're growing a family, it's hard sometimes to spend time with yourself.
You got it.
But by the early 40s, or my early 40s, I was probably 43. I was 43 when I ran my first marathon. I started off being inspired to climb a mountain, so I climbed Rainier, and I was in the best shape I'd ever been. That was in May, and I thought, I've always wanted to run a marathon. I've just spent the last 6 months getting in really good shape. Let's go run a marathon. So I signed up for the Chicago Marathon. They say you either do one or you do a bunch, because you either hate it, and it was hard, but 2 weeks later, after the race, I was thinking, I need another goal. I need to do another.
Gotcha.
And so it started off, climb a mountain in January, usually in South America, so it was their warm season. And then in the fall, run a marathon. Did that for 4 years. Gave up on mountain climbing, and then started doing an extra run, then an extra. Say, okay, well, I really like this one. Well, let's do a different one, but I still want to do that other one. So the next thing you know, you're doing a lot. So, there's been years where I'd be doing somewhere between 3 to 5 full marathons and 7 to 10 half marathons. So now I'm up to 54 full marathons and 93 half marathons. My goal, I have 4 goals.
Oh, God.
One was to do 50 fulls, and one was to do the 6 majors, which is Chicago, Boston, New York in the U.S., and then Berlin, London, Tokyo. In 2023, I was able to do 2 of the goals on the same race. I did the London Marathon, which completed the 6 majors, and it was my 50th marathon. But I did that on a broken knee. I'd actually torn up my knee like a month before.
Wow.
I could barely walk, but the doctor said, I asked him, I got to run this. He said, I even have to walk or crawl. He says, you can't make it any worse, so go ahead.
So go ahead.
Yeah, so it was not pretty, but that was that one. The other remaining goals is to get to 100 halves. I'm at 93 now. I'm going to do 94 this Sunday in New York. Should knock that out by next year. And then the last goal is to run a marathon on every continent. And I'm at 5 continents now. This June, I'll do one in Rio de Janeiro. So I'll call it South America, and then my last one will be Australia in 2026.
Wow.
And then I think I'm going to start walking I'm going to walk the earth. I think one of the next things, I think we'll start doing more hikes and climbs.
Okay, all right. Wow. Well, wow. And so it's just the mindset.
For me, it's not just my physical health, it's my mental health. Okay. I run in the mornings.
I'm with you.
So I get up early, usually 4:30, 4:45. By 5:30 or 6, I'm out either doing weights or running, but and I'm actually alternating weights and running these days, so I'm not running as many miles. But the running is just therapeutic. I don't listen to music. Yeah, I'm out there for an hour. You got blood flowing, and it's just therapeutic. Kind of centers my day, and if I don't run, I'm just discombobulated for the rest of the day.
You said it. So the same here. That I don't run as far, but when I'm not running, I can tell the difference in my, like I'm not as happy and I'm a little grumpier and not as pleasant to be around. But when I'm running, I feel like everything's clicking right. So I'm with you on that. It's very therapeutic for me as well, man. So thank you so much. Now, this is a style guide.
Yes, sir.
So I have to ask you about your fashion and what do you like to wear? What's your favorite thing?
I just look for you for inspiration and do my best Marcus
There you
Hall imitation. So Marcus Hall jacket, shirt, pants, and shoes. Everything you need right here.
You did it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I didn't even have to prep you. I promise you I didn't pay him for that. He thought he did it just right. So perfect, man. Randy, I know you're busy and I'm so grateful. I learned a lot about you today because generally we're always hustling and bustling and passing. But I'm very grateful for what you've done at Knoxville and at the university. And I think you are a really cool guy and very interesting. You got a lot of layers, man, and a family. That's the whole nother deal. You've got a beautiful, lovely wife. She's one of the sweetest people I know. And as philanthropic, you just make such a huge impact on Knoxville. And I think we're a better place for you, man. But thank you again for doing this. And I'm super happy because I learned a lot. And I'm just glad that I was able to spend this time with you today.
Yeah,
man.
same here.
All right.
Appreciate
Well,
it.
That's it. That's another Inman Style Guide. And we'll see you next time on Inman Style Guide. Thank you.